Mile and a quarter on the main track, 3-year-olds and up. This is the field for the Pacific Classic. Again, a Grade 1 event, $1 million of the purse. All eyes on Accelerate for John Sadler and now Joel Rosario, because unfortunately Victor Espinoza dealing with the injuries from that fall that happened a few weeks back. So Rosario picks up this mount. All eyes were on Accelerate, coming in off of a long layoff. Hadn't seen him since a smashing victory in the Gold Cup out at Santa Anita. He'd be looking for a pretty significant trio of victories. Call it a trifecta, if you will. The Big Cap, the Gold Cup at Santa Anita, as well as the Pacific Classic, really put him in sort of a different echelon. As not that people haven't given him full credit. We'll dive into that after we talk about the race. But this would really kind of solidify his position as the leader with the older horses. Would he be able to do it? Trevor Denman with the call.
7 lengths as they turn for home. Pavel second, the others just racing for third money. And it is all Accelerate clear by double figures with a 16th of a mile to go. They said he would overwhelm this field, and he certainly has. Accelerate for John Sadler, and Joel Rosario gets his fourth.
Accelerate blows the doors off the field. Wins by more than 12 lengths at odds. 12 lengths at odds of 2 to 5 over Pavel, who runs second, and Prime Attraction fades to run third at odds of 15 to 1. If you played the trifecta for 50 cents, comes back $13 even. Let's talk about the winner, Accelerate. He is now 8 of 20 lifetime. You see that he has been in the money in 18 of 20 lifetime starts. $2.3 million in career earnings, owned by Ronus Racing LLC, trained by John Sadler, bred by Mike Abraham in Kentucky. Ridden to victory by Joel Rosario, and you see the pedigree at the bottom of the horse card. He is by Looking at Lucky, out of an awesome, again, mare named Issues. I would imagine this is the most successful son or daughter of Looking at Lucky thus far. From a speed figure standpoint, no time form U.S. figures are in for any of these races, so we're just going to stick to the buyers at this point. 115, career best number for Accelerate, winning this race at 1.25 miles. Everyone carried 124 pounds, so there's no sort of issues there or no concerns about who carried more or less or whatever else it may be. This was just all around a dominating effort from this horse. He was basically 3 or 4 paths off the rail throughout the entirety of the run. He sat off of the pace figures, or pace setters rather, and just took over with authority rounding the far turn. It was a little bit of a blitz reminiscent to what we saw from Beholder a few years ago when she won and beat the boys in the Pacific Classic. It was rounding that far turn that she absolutely destroyed the field. And that's exactly what Accelerate did in this spot. And I think you don't have to go much farther than looking at the fractions that he set himself throughout this race. Now, understanding that he wasn't out there on the lead for the entirety of it, but he himself went 23:31, 23:64, 24:34, 24:83, and 25:72. Kind of a general rule of thumb, you come home in less than 26 for that final quarter in a 1.25 mile race, you're going to be in pretty darn good shape. And this horse, especially with some tactical speed, he's really a major threat when it comes to Breeders' Cup Classic time. You have to acknowledge that. John Sadler says the plan right now, we're going to run him in the Awesome again. That's going to be on September the 29th out at Santa Anita, a final prep leading in to the Breeders' Cup Classic, where I believe I had read it might be Bet365 overseas, over in Europe. They've installed this horse, Accelerate, as your current favorite for the Breeders' Cup Classic. Tepid, but he is the favorite for the Breeders' Cup Classic. I tweeted something along the lines on Sunday morning because I had seen so many people talking about how, well, this is an indictment on the older horses as a whole and X, Y, and Z, and there's some jackwagon coming back after I said, what else does he need to do to prove that he is a top-notch horse? He's not Gun Runner. He's not Arrogate. But you know what? Not many horses are Gun Runner or Arrogate. He's still pretty damn good. So when I get some blowhard that's out there saying, just better don't bet, don't talk about this, get away from me. I don't have time for that. This horse right here, he deserves more credit, I think, than he's getting at this point. And guess what? I understand. People want to talk about, this doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to replicate that in Louisville. I understand. We all know John Sadler's record outside of California, not great. Borderline poor. Maybe not even borderline. It's been poor. But he has had horses run well outside of California. Just because the big victories haven't come doesn't mean that it's not going to happen. This horse, Accelerate, ran really well down at Oaklawn earlier this year. His barn almost won the Breeders' Cup Distaff at Keeneland with stellar wind a few years back. So it's not as though these horses are incapable of running outside of California. I think you need to look long and hard. How many horses at 10 furlongs right now are in better position than a horse like Accelerate? And if you don't want to bet him at 5 to 2, That's fine. That's not my point. My point is, you'd be stupid if you sat there and said he is not a legitimate threat and arguably the horse to beat when it comes to that division. John Sadler's done a tremendous job with this horse. Rosario gave him a beautiful ride, especially considering this was really, I believe, his first time riding this horse. Normally you have Victor aboard. I don't have any knocks. I thought this was a tremendous effort all the way around. Off of the layoff, you would imagine that he's not going to be fully cranked up for that race in September at Santa Anita, but really, when you look at the field, and I understand, I'm usually one of the first ones saying, well, what did he beat? And other people brought that up to me. I don't think this was a stellar field, but he did beat a Grade 1 winner in Pavel. We didn't know what we were going to get from Roman Rosso. I was a little bit surprised to see the amount of speed from Roman Rosso, but okay, he didn't beat a great field. But who else out there, outside of Diversify, are you absolutely terrified of for the older horses, the older males anyway? I think Accelerate right now is very clearly the best horse in training. Diversify, no disrespect. I still really have questions about him at these longer distances at 1.25 miles. I think Accelerate is better built for 1.25 miles than a horse like Diversify. That's a story for another conversation for another day. The point is, Accelerate was tremendous on Saturday, and he is on that very, very short list of legitimate threats to win the Breeders' Cup Classic for John Sadler and company. As far as the rest of the field is concerned, not a lot to add. Roman Rosso, I suppose, if you want to say this was his first start off of a long layoff for Baffert, showed some speed, set a pretty legitimate pace, 23.46 and 3 1/2, 11 and 1 3/4. Maybe he needed one, and maybe he'll step forward in his next start. That's totally fair. But it sounds like he's more of a grinder, a long-distance, long-winded sort. Pavel, I thought Pavel ran a Pavel sort of race. You know, he fits in that high 90 range. Here in the 98 buyer in this spot. Prime Attraction, I told you, he's either brilliant or he's a pumpkin. I thought he was somewhere in between on Saturday. I think he earned a 93 buyer. I think he's probably slightly better than that on his best day. But this might be where he lives, in that mid-90 range. Roman Rosso spoke about. And then the bottom three, I mean, it is what it is. They were a little bit overmatched, and there were a reason they were 16 to 1, 12 to 1, and 60 to 1. So this race boiled down to Accelerate. How was he going to come back off the layoff? How was he going to run? And was he going to be fit and ready to go for 10 furlongs? Checked all those boxes. He was spectacular winning the Pacific Classic on Saturday afternoon. Sounds like the Awesome, again, is going to be the logical prep and the stepping stone to a big effort beneath the Twin Spires the first weekend in November in the Breeders' Cup Classic. If all goes as planned, it looks like Accelerate is going to be one of the favorites for the Breeders' Cup Classic. He earns a 1:15 buyer speed figure winning this year's Pacific Classic.